Hey, Kevin here, Mr. DIY Dork from DIYDork.com. Today I'm going to show you how to make a really cool coffee table using Ardex feather finish concrete to coat the top. So this is going to be really cool. Check it out. Alright, so to make the tabletop, what I did was I cut two boards out of a big sheet of 4x8 plywood, or it's not plywood, it's like a wafer board, OSB, because it has a nice rough texture that'll hold the concrete. I cut them at 24 by 36. What I'm going to do is stack them together. They're each 5/8 inch thick, so when they're together it's going to be 1 1/4 inch thick, which would be perfect for the concrete table. So I'm going to glue them together with some just like construction adhesive, and then I'm going to put a whole bunch of screws to join them together. So that's what I'm doing next. Alright, so as you can see, I just spread that construction adhesive all over this. I used quite a bit, so this thing's definitely not going to move. And I put it on the rough side. This wood has like a smoother side and a rougher side. So I made sure that the rough sides are going to face each other. And then all I'm doing is I'm going to stack the other one on top. Make sure that the smooth side's facing out. Glue it together. And squeeze it. And then I'm going to go ahead and put screws everywhere just to hold it all together into one solid piece. Alright, so I got the boards glued and screwed together. You can see I used some sheet metal screws because that's what I had that were 1 inch long. So I had to countersink them a little bit so that the little round heads didn't stick out. I just put 12 in there. And then once it's all said and done, so you can see the edges don't quite line up. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to cut them at one more time and just trim a little off. So what I did was I measured on my saw from the blade over to this edge, which was exactly 1.5 inches. Then I took this board as kind of like a running fence and I went over 1 5/8 inches. So I'm actually going to cut 1/8 inch off the edge here. And these should be totally even then. And I'll do that to all 4 edges, and then this thing will be, all the edges will totally match and be ready to start sanding and moving on. Right now, check it out. Totally smooth here. Exactly the same. So I'm going to do that to all the edges, and then this thing will be ready to go. Alright, so I have the tabletop flipped upside down. As you can see, the screws here, they're going to eventually face down. But I want to show you a couple things. We have some layout marks here that are at 1/2 inch. This goes all around the perimeter. And what this is that the top, which is now the bottom here, we're going to have concrete there. It's going to roll over the sides, and it's even going to roll under the bottom of the table to this 1/2 inch mark. So I'm going to lay some tape here so that we have a crisp line where the concrete will end. Also, I'm going to have to smooth the corners and round them off with a sander, and we'll do that here in a little bit. Okay, the next mark is, you can see it's 3 inches this way, it's 3 inches that way. That's the structure that's going to go underneath the table. It's going to be like 3 or 4 inches deep, and that's where the legs are going to hook to and give the table a little depth. And anyway, I went ahead and I drew all these lines so that we can have it all marked out, so that then we can sand, and then we can test fit pieces and make sure they all fit before we move on to the actual finishing with concrete and paint and all that stuff. Alright, so I just finished sanding all the edges. I did the top and the bottom edge and the corners here. I just used my little orbital sander. Just did it real quick. This OSB board sanded pretty easily. It doesn't have to be totally perfect. You just want it to look pretty good and feel smooth to the touch. Because what we're going to do is when we put that concrete on, we're going to trowel it on, but on the edges we kind of have to mold it. If you have a sharp edge, later on when you sand the concrete smooth, the edge could show. So you want it just to be a nice round reveal everywhere. So anyway, that's all you got to do. Alright, so if you remember earlier, we made the layout lines for the structure that goes underneath to hold the legs. So I went ahead and I cut it up. And if you look at this wood, you can see how gross it is, and you probably recognize it if you've seen some of my bathroom videos where I showed the wood we pulled out of the floor is really gross wood, but it's still good and usable for this. So anyway, I got it all cut up, and I just kind of want to show you how I've set it up. These are 3.5 inches thick. They're just going to be screwed, 2 screws here that are going to be countersunk, and the same thing over there on that side. And I'm going to fill them with a little wood filler so they disappear. And then to attach the structure to the tabletop, what I did is I cut these little pieces here that are 6 inches long, and it's basically just one of these sliced right in half. 6 inches long. I'm going to put 2 screws to hold it in there, and then I'm also going to put 2 screws here that will hold it into the top as well. So this way the top and the bottom structure can be taken apart. Okay, the last thing is this board here, and I got one just laying there, but they're actually going to be mounted this way. They're just going to float a little bit underneath the bottom, and this is where the legs and the leg brackets are going to support. So that way they're hidden, but it'll give nice support to the whole table. So I'm going to go ahead and attach it all together, and I'll show you what it looks like finished. Alright, so I got all of the pieces for the leg structure all sanded up, and I'm starting to assemble them, and I want to show you this real quick. It's kind of like a little cheap cabinet making clamp here, and basically it's a corner clamp. And if you don't have one of these and you plan on building something like this, you should get one. Or even a couple of them. They're really, really handy. You can get them for about $4, maybe it might be 5 to 10 depending on where you live. Basically this clamps at a 90 degree and it works awesome. What you can do then is be able to hold your joint flush and then be able to put screws in, drill holes, whatever you want. It works really great, so I recommend getting one of those. Alright, so now I got the bottom piece all assembled, and what we ended up doing was countersinking all these holes. All the screws are countersunk in there, so we can put some wood filler in there and sand it smooth, and everything will totally disappear and it'll look like one solid unit. And then the brackets that attach it to the tabletop, have those mounted, and we got screws. We test fitted it, make sure it all holds tight, nice and firm. And then the last thing are these cross braces right here. They are actually the supports for the brackets that hold the legs on. You can see I have the holes mounted here because it mounts at an angle. And we sunk that down 3/4 of an inch so that the metal bracket will be totally hidden and you won't see it when the table is standing upright. And then one final thing is that once I assembled it all, I took the sander to it and I rounded off all the corners and the edges just to smooth it out a little bit. So now what I can do is once I get the filler in, I'll prime and paint this bottom piece and even the bottom of the table a really cool color, kind of a retro color, and then I'll start working on the concrete top. Alright, so now it's time to actually concrete the top of the coffee table. And this is the same process I used when I did the countertops in our kitchen. So if that's why you're watching this video, then this is the part you're interested in. Okay, so right here we have a 10-pound bag of Ardex feather finish concrete. It's just a powder, and as you can see, we used most of it. You probably can't really even see in there. But anyway, when we did our countertops, we used about half this bag. It's a 10-pound bag. You won't need that much for a little coffee table like this. I don't quite remember how much it was, but it was on Amazon, and it was pretty affordable. It's not that expensive. Okay, so then what we did is, like I showed you earlier, we smoothed the edges because we're going to trowel the concrete up top, and we're going to have to kind of form it into a putty. Once it only has about 15 minutes of working time, and once it starts getting close to that 15-minute time, it'll start to harden up. So that's when you want to actually mold over the edges. And then what I did is we added some masking tape down here to line up to that 1/2-inch line that we drew earlier, because we're going to mold it and have it slightly come under, but we wanted kind of a crisp line. Then the other part we'll paint green later. Okay, so then what we're going to do is you mix it 1 part water to 2 parts concrete. So we have 2 cups of water in there, and we're going to put 4 cups of the mix, and then use the paddle bit on the drill, mix it up, and then we have about 15 minutes to work with it and trowel it on, and I'll show you how to trowel it next.